Hey everyone, Cole Karski here with another edition of Setup Sundays. This Sunday I'm going to be talking about some lake trout setups that I like to use. When I think lake trout fishing, I think Cliff Lake Resort in Ontario. It is not only a beautiful and scenic resort, it's got some awesome trout fishing. I had the chance to be the net man on a sweet double when we were out there in open water. I have yet to be able to fish it through the ice. That is a goal of mine, to be able to get up there for the ice, because it would be an unbelievable adventure. Hopefully we can get the borders opened up soon and we can continue to go support those resorts for our friends from the north. Now, for lake trout, in Minnesota we kind of have, in the boundary waters there's some big trout, and a lot of the lakes I have access to on a single day trip aren't as large as some of those other opportunities. If Lake Superior freezes up, then we have a chance at a true giant. And so some of my presentations are a little downsized just because we don't have the giant mega size, at least for me, right at hand, where I can go day trip and come back. So that's what I do for most of my trout fishing. So the first rod and reel that I have is, I have a Della Bay Compensator. That's their trout rod. This gets a lot of use for me. This is my big trout rod, my pike rod on the Finicky Fooler. It's my biggest pout rod. It gets a lot of work out in the winter, and that's awesome. I have the custom white and silver wraps on there. Looks pretty slick. And then with this one, I actually chose to go reel seat, just for the fact that I'm dealing with some of the biggest fish, biggest presentations. So I just wanted to lock it down in the reel seat. Not that the cold bands have ever failed me, it's just what I happened to choose on this one. As for the first lure I'm going to check out or talk about, I'm going to take a leaf or the page out of the book of Clayton Schick and go, if it ain't chartreuse, it ain't no use. I picked up some chartreuse tube jigs, and I'm going to give them a workout this year, and I'm going to try and catch giant sized trout like Clayton Schick does. I have this just on a standard 3/8 ounce tube jig head. I can go up to a half if I need to. I have some of the larger ones in my box, but the most often I fish is probably that 3/8. The second rod I'm going to talk about, I've talked about this one before, and this is a Della Bay Rip and Rattle. This rod was designed to fish big rattle baits such as this. This is a JG's custom lures. I said I wanted shiny and I wanted it to look like a scales, and I think he did a great job. I added the bladed treble on there for a little bit of extra attractant. And I have this with fishing line braid, LYN, as I do with all of these setups. I have all fishing line on this. 3 cold snap bands, and I have a fluorocarbon leader, and on all of these I do fluorocarbon leader to a barrel swivel, just because a lot of these baits, they twist and they turn, and you end up with a lot of line twist, so that barrel swivel eliminates a lot of that. This is also a rod that gets a lot of use from me all year long on the ice. Last rod and reel that I use is my Della Bay Lamplighter, because like I said, a lot of the trout or at least I get to on an easy day trip, max out at that 24, 25 inches. Maybe a shot at a little bit bigger, but this Lamplighter handles everything I need to with those. I have it straight through with fluorocarbon, cold snap bands once again, and I have a Euro Tackle live spoon. This is the largest size, and then I also added a bladed treble on this just for an extra bit of flash for these lake trout. Now there's plenty of other lures to use. I really like Lucky John Mabarus. This is the 67 size, so their biggest size. It's a nice heavy darting bait. The biggest Z-Viber from Euro Tackle. Once again, I'm a big fan of this bladed treble. Adds an extra bit of shine. Looks like sometimes the Shiner or Cisco Fry. And another great rattling bait. Standard hair jig. This one's got a stinger hook. You could put some meat on here if you wanted. And then this is a Lucky John Mako. This is the 69 size. This is a pretty light. So this one you're not fishing, you're super deep, but it's got a different darting action than the Mabaru does. So it's a nice change of pace. Great pattern, very shiny. I like it. Now one thing I do with all of these tubes, plastics, hard baits that I'm going to be talking about is I take and I smear some Billy Rub on it. This one's the smelt. Gives a nice smelt scent, it's extra fish attraction. Fish just love this stuff. Some of my other plastics that I'm a big fan of, I like the Cold Snap Craigies. Craigies are a little different looking plastic. They look kind of like a supersized shrimp. The trout love them, but this is a great kind of a little bit more finessey presentation. I end up with this one a lot due to the trout that I end up at. I also like paddle tails, little smaller paddle tails, ones that put off a nice lot of vibration. White tubes. If you don't have white tubes when you go lake trout fishing, it's the most standard bait out there. Flukes. Rig it on a jig. There's a couple of Slayer jigs that I have that I really like, and some nice color patterns. I've rigged my flukes on those. I'll rig my flukes on sometimes a bladed jig. I have what I call my trout and pout box. I have this groove box just chock full of goodies for trout and pout. This is my one box I need to grab, and then a tray of extra barrel swivels, things like that. So I can kind of stay pretty packed down to one box and being set for a day of lake trout fishing. And the final one I like that I use quite a bit is this split tail bass trailer. Actually, just gives a good action. I've had some success. As you notice, a lot of white. This year I'm going to branch out and fish a lot of chartreuse. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the trout fishing. It's going to be a great season. And once you catch a lake trout through the ice, you are just absolutely hooked. There's no other fish like it. If you have any questions on any of my setup items here, please send me a message. I'm happy to answer any questions. Leave a comment. This is Cole Karski with Setup Sundays. Good luck, everyone, and tight lines.